All right. So here's one thing I want to make clear before I even start this video is I'm not here as your teacher. I'm not your teacher. I'm not a teacher. And the reason I never really want to position myself as a teacher is because I can't teach something that you already know. You see, deep inside, I know that everybody knows this. Like, you know whatever it is that I'm presenting here. And it's not to say that, you know, this is what you have to hold factual and truth for yourself. However, I'm not coming from a space of me thinking I know if, you know, do I think this information is correct? I know what I know. I know my information is correct. But then again, your perception of life, everything for you, is going to be a totally different experience. See, the whole thing is I even said in my previous video that, you know, a lot of people try to acclimate to their environment when the environment is actually acclimating to you. I went in depth when I talked about consciousness. You can even, in very simplistic forms, right? You can see that when you have anger in you, you'll attract angry people. So in actuality, you attract what you are. You may find these mirror images of yourself, and in times they may even trigger you. Okay? When you're angry, you'll experience angry people on the road. You'll experience people in different places of life just expressing anger towards you, and only because they're showing you what you are. So when I say you basically have your environment acclimate to you, it's basically starting from you, you know. But this would sound a little pseudo too out there for certain people, but your reality molds and shapes to you because that is what's inside of you. But you're also observing the reptilian side of you. However, you're experiencing the polarities, the dualities, the illusion of separation. Everything that you have within you is there. It's only designed that way for you to have an experience, though, right? But you get lost and forget that, you know, you're not the smaller person. You're technically the bigger person here, which is why sometimes when you may engage into certain things that are what we call low vibrational or whatnot, and we want to lash out at people who triggered us and whatnot, and then that, you know, they say that's the ego and they tell you to be the bigger person. But why do they tell you to be the bigger person? Because the bigger person is basically bigger than the ego, you know. And you have this in you. There's the polarity of things, the ability to do one thing or the other, right? But it's two sides of the same coin, right? There's high vibe, low vibe. In order for high vibe to be high vibe, there has to be low vibe, right? You know, when I say that this is something you already know, right? You haven't accessed that, if anything. And it's not to say that I know more than you or I'm above you. Everybody has the ability to do this. It's just kind of like somebody saying, you know, they have all these riches in the bank and they put themselves above me, right? That the money has no value. They just had a consciousness to acquire certain gains in this game of life. But if the person in a lesser state puts them above them, then their consciousness is totally lost in the illusion of valuing something based on what one would think value is. We're experiencing the ego in real time when we're observing our reality outside of ourselves. When you see the, you know, the elites, the families, the small 100 families that run the world and whatnot, that's your ego. Like I said in the previous video, it's the smaller person. And because you give your power away due to unawareness, this is what has control over the actual planet. If you realize or recognized your power and you started acting accordingly, conducting yourself in society, because everything in society has you trained mentally, spiritually. You go, you know, when you go to the gym, you train yourself. When you go to school, they train your mentality. When you go to work, they train you how to be an employee. And you know, every train has a conductor. And if you're just one of the little train trolleys in the back, who's running the train? Who's actually keeping you on track, keeping you in line, right? Because the thing is, that's why people say, man, that person's on the right path. That person's on the right track. Hey, don't cross my path. You know what I'm saying? Because we're literally in this life experiencing it linear. When in actuality, when you really step outside of it, you can actually experience multidimensional shit. And certain things would happen that would be considered, what Jesus once did, called miracles. And Jesus said, you could do what I could do, only better. Only thing here is that we're experiencing it under this illusion of time. Just basically connected to the heart space. When you're in your heart space and you're realizing you're projecting your reality from this space. This is basically sort of like a gateway we're experiencing here in this reality right now. So we're in the kingdom of heaven as we speak. You're observing the dome, the upper realms right now, right? However, okay, there's a generator, okay? When we look outside of ourselves, we see the sun. That's what's lighting up your reality. We have a generator within us. And when we're operating from ego, this is why, that ego wants to be the shining one. The shining one. It's the one that wants to stand out or stick out. We have some people who are, not extroverts, but more introverts. And we have all different walks of life here. All these people you observe in your reality are nothing but mirror and reflections of yourself. You give them the consciousness, right? Only by the vibrational state and being that you are. And then the way they interact with you is basically how you interact with them. You notice how they may come across very nice, but let's say if you say something that rubbed them the wrong way, all of a sudden now they basically change their character only to acclimate to how you were acting toward them. Let's say if somebody comes up to you with negative drama, some bullshit, and they say, man, today sucks, this and that. I hate rain. You show them the brighter side of things by transmuting that energy. Well, no, the beauty side of things is that when it rains, the day looks actually brighter the next day because it cleaned the air out. Or let's say if you have plants, man, this is good because now there's all the nitrogen that falls to the soil. Your plants are going to look nice. If it rains, for anything that you can actually transmute, you could give people the brighter side of things. So you're basically being a light worker in this aspect right now, right? Is you're making order out of the chaos of humanity to some extent. There may be blessings in disguise where you're in a dark place and somebody else may guide you and show you the brighter side of things, right? And when I started this video about being a teacher, you ever heard that, see, we're bound on memory here, right? Everything is memory. So your ego, let's say your experience, everything's determined by the memory you have here. Even the things you hold close to your heart. Like I said the example yesterday about my son. If I didn't have memory of him, I wouldn't feel the way I feel for him. You know what I'm saying? It's just a memory I have of the things I've done here. And those things I hold close to my heart. Information, people get so attached to it. It's so much so that they decide to use this as a weapon to debate somebody and go kill them and smash their character, not knowing that they're doing animalistic things, and then point the finger at other people for, let's say, even eating animals, when in actuality, and they say, you're eating animals, or let's say carnivorous animals should be culled because they're infringing in the right of other animals and they're killing other animals, right? And then the animal doesn't know it's doing what you categorize as bad, right? It's just doing animalistic shit. Now, you are said to be on this planet having dominion over the planet and the animals, right? And the reason why is because of the higher faculties we have over these animals, okay? See, the animal will bring you what it killed as a prize, and it's proud of it. It'll show it to you because it's trying to impress you. But you said the animal did a bad thing, right? When you go and debate somebody, you're doing the exact same thing, only in a higher evolved form. So if a higher evolved form of you, the human, said, well, look, you're doing exactly what the animal did, only in a higher evolved form, and you know not what you do, the same way the cat or the animal knew not what it did when it killed the other animal, right? But it's just part of nature, right? It's just part of nature. Like human nature, what is human supposed to do? The human animal, right? So you ever see that just how things look in the outer world. How if we, let's say certain animals in the wild, they don't even eat every day. They eat, if anything, sometimes once a week, right? So you are eating every single day, and sometimes you eat animals 3 times a day. You'll eat sausages for breakfast. You may eat chicken sandwich for lunch and then a steak for dinner. I mean, the amount of meats and the amount of things that you're buying also with the drugs infused in it is astronomical, is detrimental, right? So now we have to open up certain things like factory farming and whatnot just to sustain your unnatural eating habits. Where if anything, we can look at it from a couple of ways. Your human body wasn't even designed to really eat meat, but it can eat meat, right? So if I ate meat, I would probably say I could eat meat once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, right? And the rest of the time I'm focusing on fruits, maybe some lentils, and I'm done growing. You know what I'm saying? Like what's the point of these complex amino acids going into my body? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the point of it? So it's more or less like I'll focus more on like life force food. If I'm already going toward death, right? The closer I get to death is because I'm getting older. I get closer and closer to death. Wouldn't I try to eat more life force foods and less dead foods to keep my focus and somehow my consciousness online, right? The same way when you listen to information, right? You listen to information sometimes when a person is speaking to you and it's coming from a space of making an interest for a profit, but not really to enhance the benefit for others outside of themselves. This is kind of like what you're getting. It's kind of like dead food, empty calories, I don't want to discredit anybody online, but a lot of people are so in their fucking ego. And you can hear this just through one key little element. Just hear them when they're talking. They're mainly complaining in the majority of their videos. Even toward the things they're teaching you, they're still complaining. There could be truth in many of the things that are said, including like if I hear conspiracy theorists say that there's fluoride in the water, there's fluoride in your toothpaste, there's drugs in your food. Yeah, that's true. But how do I use that truth? That's the whole thing. Do I come from a space of fear? Do I come from a space? And fear, you could just completely discard those things and just go completely just eat something different to stay away from that, right? There's the other type of person who may now become aware of that and use their magical abilities to even change, redefine the meaning of the things they heard about what's in that food. So in other words, now instead of it becoming a detriment or a drug, it can actually become a medicinal thing, or it can be a healing thing for that individual. So if somebody told you that the fluoride in the water is bad for you, you can restructure this water and now the fluoride would be actually good for you. And I'm not telling you to all do that because that takes a lot of focus and power. And the whole thing is that a belief around it has to be created, that and a strong belief. And I'm talking about the type of belief that, certain yogis built themselves up to a certain state to basically have venom in their blood, drink strychnine, and still stay alive. Only because this is true mind over matter, right? The mind is all, the universe is mental. The metaphysical is stronger than the physical. When you start to live this way, you have less fear, right? And you'll start to now become like a child, only in its purest state, because the child, sometimes when you observe the children, they're afraid of bugs, they're afraid of certain things, but they were never really naturally afraid of these things. That was passed down by the parents. So when I came out and said, I'm not a teacher, you already know these things. It's already in you. All the stuff that anybody can never talk about is already in you. There's nothing new under the sun. The same way when we have memory, you can have amnesia and not remember shit. Something else is remembering you, though. Something else remembers. And this is what we say is stored in DNA, stored in the Akashic records, right? So it doesn't matter if I remember my child tomorrow. I really do remember my child tomorrow. Just my human form wouldn't even be able to remember my child if that was to ever be the case where somebody suffers of amnesia, right? And this is the thing though. When you die, you take none of this with you. So the information is a form of wealth. The same way in the Bible they tell you that for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven is like a camel trying to get through the eye of a needle. Why is that? Right? That's a lot of baggage. The information is not yours. Okay? It's something that you enhanced yourself with in this reality, and it's stored somewhere for the betterment of the collective outside of you, which is actually you. This is actually the Akashic Records. Now, your memory is determined by your vibrational state, your frequency. You tap into a memory the same way you dial a phone number and you reach the person you intended to reach directly. You know the person's exact name, right? So you'll call them by their name, they will respond to you. Jesus Christ, the letter J didn't even exist. What is the frequency of Christ, right? The frequency of Christ is your frequency. And when you know this, because you know thyself, or you tapped into that secret number that we all have, the world starts to open up to you a certain way. So the same way we say, I have childhood traumas. You only have childhood traumas only because even your child is hidden in the closet. When you let the child out, it comes with those traumas, right? You still are that child. You stop being that child because you believe in the aging process, your body change, so you try to acclimate to your environment. The same way I said, the environment's supposed to acclimate and mold to you. This is even a fact. When you're angry, you'll see angry people presented in your life to some extent. It'll show you everything. So when you go back to being a child authentically, where you actually realize and feel like a child, not for egotistical purpose, because I see these people doing it online only because they're trying to gain some type of superpower. But the same way, when you realize you still are that child, you'll become more playful. Things will start to ease up for you. You'll become more malleable, more flexible, even more open-minded, more curious now. But it won't be the type of curiosity that your ego wants to know. It'll be a childlike curiosity, where now things will start showing themselves to you and you have the maturity to know whether you accept them or not. Because a child doesn't have the ability to reject their environment from the ages of 1 to 7, which is why they're the most programmable. I'm still in that energy, but man, if this ain't the fucking baddest fucking cup on the planet, man, I don't know what the fuck is. So, when I say I'm not your teacher, you already know this. Position yourself as a student, the teacher will appear, right? You hear this all the time. That's when you see other people outside of you that may present themselves in your reality to say something that sparks or turns you on, and it turns your DNA on to some extent. But keep in mind, these people are you, right? So you design these people only because you position yourself authentically as a student and not a fucking know-it-all. When you position yourself as a know-it-all, you'll appear. Other people in your reality will be more know-it-alls. And they'll just not teach you anything. They're going to basically trigger you because they'll come off the same way you're coming off. And it's only a mirror of yourself. And you'll point the finger at them. You'll start to further fuck yourself up. And this is why I say unfuck yourself. Because you keep fucking yourself. Technically. So memory, as Zen Atman said one time, is water and light, right? And when you go to court, you say something, they say that holds no water. So you're made of water, which means you're holding the water. You are the truth. The water bearer, the light bearer, the Aquarius, you're all that within you. It's all within you. And life is death. Death is life. I mean, you'll start to notice how you'll see everything as one. I made all these examples in the previous videos, which I suggest you watch the last 2 videos along with this one, and it'll get a thorough understanding that the consciousness that everybody has outside of them that we're trying to teach them is not something you could teach them. They are basically going to be, you can't teach them Christ consciousness. The moment you become self-actualized and self-aware is the same way Jesus Christ healed that one person in the room. And then people say, well, why didn't he heal the whole room? And he technically did by healing that one person, because that one person now is a viral contagion in that whole room. And I'm talking about the favorable one, because when you see a room get infected by a bad virus because one person got infected, they infected the whole room, everybody dies. It's the same way, but it could be done on the polar opposite end of good too. So when you're operating from Christ consciousness, you'll start to turn everybody else on. They're going to be operating from Christ consciousness because you are what you attract. You're basically, your vibe will attract your tribe. I don't know. That's all I'm pretty much going to cover with this video. I'll go into other stuff, but I want to say cheers to everybody. Cheers. Like if you like, and we'll talk soon.